This is Nicholas Alexiou, the Hellenic American Project and the Department of Sociology. I wanted to thank NICOLE ECONOMIDES for accepting having this interview for the archives and CUNY College. Based on the new exhibit that is underway now through the university and the Hellenic American Project, we have this interview. And we'd like to start by knowing a few more things about your background, where you're born, where the family came from, where you grew up. Nicole.
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me and having me as part of the exhibition and a part of this interview series. So I was born in Manhattan, New York, October 13th, 1992. And my mom grew up here, but was born in Germany and was kind of moving around with her family because my grandfather was changing jobs in construction and also in restaurant business. But she grew up mainly in the US. And my father had immigrated from Greece to the United States to study. So they met, got married, and that's how me and my sisters were born here.
Do you know the roots of the family, where the father came from or where the mother came from, which parts of Greece?
So the answer to that question is so complicated because everyone is like from so many different places. But my father grew up in Piraeus, but his family is was from Μικρά Ασία, from Asia Minor. And they kind of immigrated from Asia Minor to Greece. And on my mom's side, my grandfather was from Kavala, but they also immigrated from Samsuda. So there's like a long history of immigration in my family. Yeah. And so when I was 7, we moved back to Greece, the whole family. And I was raised in Athens, in Greece.
And how many years you lived in Greece?
So 20. Actually I'm 27 now, but I've been here for 3 years. So yeah, I would say 17 years I've been in Greece.
And how you identify yourself, given the fact of the various movements back and forth in Greece, living also in New York, being born in New York, but also living in Greece?
Yeah, I identify as Greek. I feel Greek because I feel where I grew, like when I grew up into adulthood, all of like the stimuli that I got was from Greece. But of course, I do have a lot of elements that are from America. But I identify as Greek, even though I have dual citizenship.
Is the return back to New York related to the economic austerity that Greece went through the past 10 years since 2008, 2018, and how you experience that?
Yeah, so my family was hit pretty hard from the austerity and the whole financial crisis. But to be honest, coming to New York was a of mine since before I went into university. I think because my family lived here and they were telling me stories when growing up, I kind of had that in my mind. But for me to move, one of the main reasons was, first of all, that I didn't get accepted into the fine arts program in Athens to do my master's, and I was accepted in New York, so I kind of saw it as a sign. And in the end, it was a good decision because of the whole financial crisis. It would be very different, I feel.
So coming back, you had the chance to reconnect or reunite with old friends?
In New York, you mean?
Yes.
I didn't really have any friends in New York. I kind of came here by myself.
Mhm.
In New York, we do have some family friends that were my sister's godparents, actually, that helped me a lot in the beginning. My whole family was in Greece, and my grandmother and my uncle live in Maryland. So they also helped me. I was working in the restaurant for a couple months over the summer before school started to get me kind of going and to save up some money. And then I moved to New York and started school, and kind of like, yeah, there's a long story there of like how I ended up where I am right now. A lot of jobs during school and trying to make it on my own. But it was tough in the beginning, but it was totally worth it, I feel.
So you are in a unique position uh, to occupy uh, at least two cultures, two countries, two continents. This transatlantic relationship you have with both the US and Greece. Uh, how that works for you, or is this reflected to your art also?
Yeah. So it is reflective in my art, but it only began when I came here. So when I was in Greece, the art that I did, or like the paintings that I created, didn't have to do with Greece at all. And moving here, I was in denial to not create work about Greece because I didn't want to be the Greek student that was talking about Greece and making art about Greece. I wanted to do something else. I wanted to be more abstract, talk about art as art itself. But as time went by, I realized that the only thing I could think about was back home, and also because of the political and financial situation that was going on, I kind of felt that I was missing being a part of like the action and the like trying to like participate. So eventually my art started becoming about that. And also I was also thinking about how other people perceived me as being Greek, and also speaking without a Greek accent in English. And in general, like what I would get when I would say like, oh, I'm from Greece, kind of like the stereotypes and the biases that comes with that. And that kind of outpoured in my paintings and like my videos, and in general, like my art practice. Yes.
Very good. When you first decided to study arts and be a painter and a person who is not a typical Greek, let's say, occupation. Usually families are very skeptical about letting their children go to the arts. How the family responded to that?
It's a funny story, actually. Like now I laugh about it. But they weren't really responsive. Like they didn't really understand. Also, being in high school in Greece and having to know what you want to be at 18 and what you want to study, it was just like something that I could not do. So I actually didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew that I liked colors. I knew that I liked drawing. He's like, okay, so you're going to become an architect, because an architect is a science, is like something that's serious and it's acknowledged and is accepted by society. And it's something that he also learned, and like kind of a logic that was passed down to him by his own father. Like my dad wanted to be a doctor, an architect, and because my grandfather was a civil engineer, he also became one, and also all of his brothers. So I kind of felt that that was passing down to me. So I didn't really know what to do. But I remember we had this conversation and he was like, okay, you don't know what you want to do. So what do you like? I'm like, well, I like colors. And he's like, okay, like yine boyadzis, which is like, just like go and paint houses or something. So like, he couldn't really, I love him dearly. And like, at that point I was like, and now he's super, super supportive, because he kind of understands through me how it works, or tries to, and like I really thank him and both my mom for that as well. But yeah, in the beginning it was very awkward. They didn't really know. I told them I'm going to a residency in Berlin for a month, and they're like, why? What is a residency? So yeah, we had some bumpy kind of like some speed bumps, but now they're like super supportive.
Astoria has been the symbol of Greek immigration for many, many years. Do you live in Astoria? And
Yeah.
what Astoria means for you?
Right. So when I first moved here, I actually, because I knew that in Astoria all the Greeks live, I was like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to live there. I want to go somewhere where I'm out of my comfort zone, where they don't speak Greek. The reason I'm leaving Greece is to explore something different. But completely, like randomly, I found a place in Astoria that was amazing. And I'm like, okay, like this is a great neighborhood. I'm just going to live here. And now I feel after like 3 years, I actually enjoy walking down the street and listening to Greek, and kind of, it makes me feel connected with back home. But my initial reaction coming here was that it's kind of like a time capsule of like the people that immigrated like in the 50s, kind of, and had a family, kind of like passed on that kind of mentality of what Greece was in a way when they moved here. But obviously, of course, there are also young people that move from Greece here, so they've had like the stimulus and the stimuli from Greece and have like a different kind of logic. But it was interesting to see how Greeks here kind of react to certain situations. Also in how they react to social and political situations that are back in Greece, as if, yeah, that's a whole different topic, but it was a very interesting.
It is very interesting to touch a little bit. When you are here in New York, in Astoria, do your friends or relatives or in the neighborhood, they know that you are an artist, the Greek American, and do you think that Greek Americans have a vision about Greek American art? What I have said in the past, and I wrote, is that although the Greek Americans have an upward socioeconomic mobility, there is some kind of problem when it comes to the arts. They don't have a vision, they don't have a program, they don't have a strong relationship. Because Astoria, although it is a great place about food and products and Greek things, there is not one gallery. There is not a library related to Greek things. So what is to be a young female Greek American artist living in Astoria, in a place that has very little support of the arts? Yeah.
Well, I feel like, okay, so where should I begin? I feel like there aren't a lot of galleries or supports for the arts, because I feel like Greeks that live in Astoria, or Greek Americans, they kind of reproduce. You also mentioned restaurants. So they kind of reproduce the stereotype of what Greece is, and also what can be commercialized and what can be, as I said, when they immigrated here in the 50s, kind of reproduce that thinking process of like, oh, we have to offer hospitality and food, and the kind of tourist mentality that we also have in Greece as well. And also a big part of that is, for people at least that live in Greece and are educated in Greece, is because the educational system also doesn't provide that much attention to the arts. And especially now that there's a discussion about a new law about subtracting even more lessons and classes of arts in secondary education, it's dire. It's very, I feel like it's one of the main problems that.
Yes, the new law that the government of New Democracy want to pass, they eliminate many programs related to the arts.
Yeah.
I hope they don't succeed.
Yeah, same. Me too. It's very sad because I think there were scarce to begin with in education, in secondary education, especially in public schools, because there's a big divide between the public school system and the private school system. And I feel like the public school system, like both kind of focus on panellinias, like the national test of like in which university you will go to. But again, it's focused on the sciences, on the serious kind of jobs or whatever is perceived as serious in Greece. So I feel like that is kind of a reflection also here, and that's what I feel like I need to change through my work. And also I know a lot of other Greek artists that are trying to do that as well, that are in like my generation. Because also in Greece, there's no support in art workers or artists, or artists don't get paid as artist assistants. Something that here is also like, is something that happens in New York, but still like we have to fight for even more. Great, it's great for your CV, but you don't get paid. You pay for actually spaces or for transportation or for all of that. So it's basically kind of like part of the, what's it called? I'm sorry. Diaskedasi, I'm sorry. Greek and English words are both in my head right now.
Entertainment, yes.
The entertainment, exactly. So it's part of entertainment. It's not part of like the culture. So we don't, even though because of ancient Greece we have, and because of the Byzantine era and so many eras, like we have so much culture to give, I feel like that comes in the back burner of tourism. So yeah, I feel like that's something that I aim to change by bridging also Athens and New York. Yeah.
You have said, and you have you wrote that I know that you are very critical about the question of history and who owns history, and also in your art you somehow pose that question in your art. I would like to hear your views on that, and given the fact that in a few months we have the bicentennial anniversary of the Greek War of Independence. What 2021 signifies for you, this anniversary also?
All right, let me begin by saying maybe about the connection, about the revolution, and then like I'll maybe explain a little bit about what I mean through the ownership of history in my work. To be honest, because of the different historical contexts of contemporary Greece and the time that the revolution happened, I don't see an immediate connection, but to the revolution that happened 200 years ago with the contemporary historical context. But if I could connect them, contemporary times. So I feel like it's very important to recognize and understand why that happened in history, and we can kind of learn from it for our current situations. But I feel like it's a very, like kind of, it's dangerous to connect with it too much, because then we kind of live in a time capsule of reproducing ideals and kind of biases that happened in that historical context. And we get confused and kind of connect them even though we're not connected. So yeah, I feel it's very important to acknowledge it and to instinct from it that I feel exists in people today.
I see. But also, as an artist, you and as a citizen in both countries, right? We experience this racial injustice movements recently in the USA and also in Greece and other countries. The protests in support of this. How you respond into this? Including the pandemic, going through the pandemic also, right?
Yes. Would you like me to answer about the previous first?
Yes.
Talking about the ownership of history that we mentioned before, I noticed that a lot of that phrase of Western civilization was built on antiquity or on ancient Greece or ancient Roman times. So all of those ideas and philosophy and arts kind of transcended into the global North and Western culture and civilization. So I feel like the way that we Greeks also learn about it is through the scope and the gaze of the global North and how it's portrayed through Western civilization rather than going back and understanding it from where it began. So a lot of like being here, the educational system teaches Plato and teaches all of these ancient Greeks, and the feeling I get is that it's being appropriated as like their own in a way, which isn't, I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm just saying that I found it interesting in how like people approach it here. So my research began with one artist, which is called Cy Twombly. So he was a painter that I admired a lot, and I kind of put on a pedestal a lot during my undergrad times. And as I came here, and he uses a lot of ancient Greek myths and names, and he writes them on his paintings. So coming here, I was kind of like looking at it, and I'm like, but why does he use it? Like, why? What is the reason that he uses it? And the reason that my intake is that it's so romantic, like to talk about myths and these stories that they're kind of disassociated with the reality of being Greek. So by using a Greek name that is derived from Greek history or Greek myth, in current times, you're kind of recontextualizing it. So also the fact that he was a man and painter, and one of like the big ones is also very important to mention. So I kind of took it personally and was thinking about, okay, so I'm a Greek painter living in New York, and I'm a woman painter, so I have some disadvantages in the field. And so how do I approach this? And I wanted to kind of approach it in a comical and use humor to kind of turn it on its head and write in Greek, which is also something that the viewer can romanticize and can fantasize of what it means. So like there's no access to the actual meaning of the words, but there is the kind of the romantification of what it means. And again, in that, the romantification of Greek culture and Greekness and Greek identity in itself, and also, which is a contemporary issue of how people view Greece that don't live in Greece. So like coming back to what responses I got when I got here of, oh, you're from Greece, oh, Mykonos, or oh, Souvlaki, or oh, like your islands, or some people didn't even know where it was on the map. So I was like, okay, of course, a lot of people knew ancient Greece, but they don't know what happened between ancient Greece and now. Like, that history is like a black square. Like, it's completely erased, kind of. So I kind of wanted to bridge that. Also, my family being from Asia Minor, kind of like talking about that immigration and that history and how that came to identify me now as being Greek. Like, what does that mean? It doesn't mean I'm from ancient Greece. It means that what made me be and made me think the way that I think are some moments historically that have also infiltrated socially in my social environment when I was growing up. So I kind of like wanted to open a bigger conversation talking about the ownership of history, of like who manipulates it, and who teaches it. And because we say that also like that history is being taught is the bigger power, or like the hierarchy. Where is the hierarchy? So yes, that's my response on the ownership of history. It's like more broad. It's not that I actually want to find an answer. It's more of posing the question so that people can contemplate of learning where they're from, basically. And to answer about the protests, so it's like completely switching. I feel that it's very important that these protests are happening now in the United States, especially since racial inequality is so rooted in American history. And I feel that it's a constant battle, that it's still happening in 2020. And I feel like there's a lot of manipulation in the media about it and in politics, and it kind of infiltrates into the everyday. And even though it's happening during COVID, I mean, it's now or never. If people are careful and they're being cautious, you just can't stay home with these and just like watch history write itself. Like, you have to be part of it. And I'm very proud that actually that protests are happening in Greece about this as well, as a response. Even though I feel that racism and racial inequality is very different in Europe than it is in the United States because of the history. I feel that the fact that we're all interconnected because of globalization as well, and because of technology, it's very important to kind of have solidarity and to show that there is support as well. Yeah.
Let's talk more about your work, and to talk about initial influences, and you mentioned already some, but also, are you aware of, or do you have a critical stance about Greek American artists historically here? Do you see yourself also as a Greek American artist? And does place affect your work? If you create in Greece, for example, is a different feeling or method or technique than the one when you are in New York?
That's a very good question. Place does play a very big part in the way or what I paint or what art I create, because again, it has to do with the manipulation of language. If I show a piece in Greece that people understand and can read, what I write should be much different than what I write here, I feel like. Because there is that access. So the inaccessibility of the language doesn't exist there. So basically I have to manipulate also the content of what I write. So yes, it does change for sure. Um, I'm sorry, what was the first part of your question? So I answer it correctly.
Your early influences about your work, or you already mentioned a few things, and also um, within the Greek American community, there are some prominent Greek American artists, and if you consider yourself as part of the Greek American artists.
I do, because also half of my education is in the United States, and because I do plan to be in the art field both in Greece and here. So I think it would be hypocritical to not call myself a Greek American artist if my field and my education and a part of myself is American, even though I feel and identify as Greek. So yes, that's my answer.
Let's talk about the two pieces that are at the moment on exhibit, with Queen's College and Hellenic American Project. Talk about the specific pieces.
In the show, there are two pieces. One of them is New Ruins, which is a painting, a canvas, which has a photo transfer of the excavation of the Athenian Agora in 1931. One is of three monoprints, where I've taken a phrase from a movie, an old Greek movie, which is called Έλα να αγαπηθούμε darling, which kind of speaks about tourism and kind of like the role of like the Greek lover or hospitality, and also plays a little bit upon gender roles as well, and how like men are perceived in Greece, or how like that kind of myth of a Greek lover was kind of created through cinema. So for the first piece, again, because I'm interested in history, I took that moment of the excavation of the Athenian Agora because it wasn't done by Greeks. And I thought of, it couldn't have been done by Greeks because it was in 1931. And like Greece didn't have the to kind of do that excavation because it needed a lot of financial support behind it. So it was done by the Archaeological American School of Studies, and also another organization in Germany, I believe. There were some German architects. So what fascinated me, I was also reading an article by Aristidis Adonas that was in Documenta 14 that talks about kind of that Athens was built for the gaze of the viewer and of the visitor, and not for Greeks themselves. And kind of like that kind of got me thinking about the infrastructure and how the streets that I walk in Athens, when I go there, was kind of from the beginning curated for a tourist or for someone that's coming from the outside to view the city. And that kind of, again, was making me think about contemporary Greek identity and how we see ourselves through kind of that prism and through that lens of the global north and of Western society. And also the medium, because I did a photo transfer, is kind of like reminds me of the streets of Athens as well, like because there's a lot of posters that are ripped, and it kind of like creates this like artistic or even painterly quality to the streets, as in combination with the graffiti or the tags. So it's kind of like an expression of the citizens or of the people that is kind of like freely expressed on the streets there. And that's kind of like the connection that I made And for the second piece, again, I'm using this manipulation of language. So I take the phrase, come to Greece για να τη βρεις. So come to Greece is also come to Greece. So it's basically using English in Greek with like a Greek accent to speak to tourists. And so like the phrase is come to Greece, like we can find it, we can figure it out, we can have a nice time. And I'm writing it backwards because there's this inaccessibility of who is saying it, and like the access again of language and of identity, and like that there is a barrier. And also using this phrase to be also playful and humorous and kind of access it through like a different lens, because also I feel like in Greece we also use humor a lot, and at least for me it's something that's also part of my personal my personality as well. So kind of like to play with the viewer, and so it's more interactive, I guess. Yeah.
What are your plans for the future? Are you optimistic or not about the future, given the situation that the whole planet is in?
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm optimistic in the way that like I hope, or I'm very pragmatic. Like I feel like I'm a very pragmatic person, but I'm not pessimistic. I feel like if we keep pushing and expressing ourselves and creating community, and kind of communicating with each other, then there will be progress. And I feel there has been progress. Just like with progress, there's also a lot of things, like it can't all be good or all be bad. Like it's like a spectrum of things. So now it's very shocking and alarming that everything is happening at the same time, like socially, economically, like health-wise. It's insane that everything happened at the same moment, but it's also maybe a good time for things to renew and start anew and make us think more about some things and kind of self-evaluate. So in that being said, I do have faith in people, even though sometimes I feel I shouldn't. But I feel like that's the only thing we have. We're people, and we have to communicate and kind of be open and open-minded.
During the epidemic and the lockdown and all the isolation, you had a chance to create, art was part of your support group, creating art?
You mean during or before? I didn't. There was a glitch in the Wi-Fi.
During the lockdown and the isolation and the stay-home thing. Yeah.
Well, I think it helped me a lot. I feel like I needed kind of, because working in New York and being an artist while working is very, very challenging. And I feel like I was at the point where I was burning out. So I was in auto. I was doing everything really automatically. And having to stay home and being quarantined in the beginning was very challenging for me to create, because I was like, okay, what am I going to do in the house? Like, how am I going to? But it also gave me time with myself to think, and it kind of pushed me, and I think it really helped me create, in a sense. Even though I didn't create new paintings, even writing down and creating videos and looking and observing and creating notes for new art is very important, I feel.
Very good. I hope soon we're going to see this new work of yours. Unless our curator, Mr. Tiffany Apostolou, has any questions, I would like to conclude our interview of today, which is Monday, June 22nd, 2020. And you know, with your final remarks, your greetings, your advice about Greek artists or Greek American artists, and also as a woman, as a female artist.
Yeah. So actually, that being said, I feel like I want to share something about myself that I feel like a lot of female artists not have, but tend to do maybe, is that I always feel I'm not good enough, and I always feel like I'm stressed or I'm nervous to speak about my work or to put my work out there. And also a professor in school here was like, why don't you just do it? Just do it. You're thinking of it. You've got it. Just like do it. Other male painters do something, and because they have the confidence that it's a masterpiece, that's the way they sell it, and it just works. So like that's what you're missing. Just do it and put yourself out there and have the confidence to. And I feel like that's what a lot of female artists are missing, especially in Greece, where we're trying to make progress with the whole gender inequality thing, but I feel like it's so ingrained in the social reality there that I see it even in my friends that are the most open-minded men and women. We're both victims to patriarchy. So I feel like my advice, even though I hate giving advice, because who am I to give advice, but would be just like have confidence in yourself and just say what it is you're going to say, and no one's perfect, and it's better to say it than to remain silent. Yeah, and keep healthy, everyone, and be careful, and that's it. And thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Do you think the gender issues are more alleviated in New York? Does that affect your practice when you do it here versus in Greece?
Yeah, I feel like I get more stress when I'm going to show my work in Greece, or like when I'm going to post it on Instagram. I know that my Greek artist friends are going to see it. I feel much more judged. And I'm not saying that they actually do it. It's just that it's my perception of it is that. And that derives from a certain behavior that I experienced. So something must exist, even though it happens unconsciously. And I do feel that the gender issue in New York has been alleviated for me, and it has helped me like kind of gain my voice and be more prominent. So yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you very much.